oblige me, please. You know, our goddesses in Yoruba land, I just want to say this. Our goddesses were our heroine, female heroes, were those who we call our goddesses, and our gods were male heroes. You know, I was having a conversation with my children some days ago, and we're trying to understand the difference between. So they were talking about idols and deities, and we're trying to understand the difference between deities and heroes. In Ifa, the concept of deity in Ifa is that it is the heroes that become deities. That's what Ifa teaches. In your oriṣa, human beings become deities. I'm not saying there are no spirit beings. There are spirit. I'm not talking about Yorùbá. I'm talking about Òrìṣà. I'm going somewhere with this. And one of the ways I also want to talk to Yoruba people generally, regardless of your religion, when you see, this is what I told my children, this is true by the way, when you see ere, there are eres that are idols, but I assure you, a lot of the eres you see are actually the pictures of the time. That's the way to have the memory, the image of the person. The same way you have your pictures taken today is the way you have to create a ray for that person, not necessarily for worship or veneration, but just as a way to preserve the image of that person. I'm going somewhere. Now, a lot of our heroes are the ones we call gods today. And I've said something before, and I'll say it one more time. Well, not one more time. I'll say it again and again and again. While some people can embrace the spirituality behind the deities, all of us have to learn from the humanity of the heroes. So there's the spirituality of the deities, there's the humanity of the heroes. And the mistake we're making generally in Yoruba land is that we conflate the two. We think when we see those beings, all they are is deity. And so the only thing we relate with them is like, oh, the spirituality. I talk to my children about some of our own ancestors in our own family. A number of them are deities today in Yoruba land. In other words, the relationship that many people have with those personages is that of veneration and worship, and that's okay. But if I want to learn from them, I cannot learn anything from them as deities. You don't learn from deities. You have to appease deities. You have to appeal to deities. You have to venerate deities. But you can learn from heroes, regardless of your religion. And in Yoruba's case, our heroes are not just men, they're also women. So in our stories, you will have people like Moremi. Moremi is but beyond that is what she did. So when you think about our humanity, you are able to learn something, which is why I thank God that Awolowo was born when he was born. You know why? Because if he was born in the 14th century, the only thing we're going to be discussing for the most part will be the spirituality of the deity that Awo has become. When we say Awolowo, we think of the Òrìṣà, and I believe it's an Òrìṣà regardless. Excuse me. I believe Awo is an Òrìṣà, regardless of whether Teposoria is an Òrìṣà. But I'm saying this generally, and I'm going somewhere with this. We have to be, if we want to evolve as a people, because you study your mates, like China, like England, you study your mates as Yoruba people, and you're like, there has to be a balance between the spirituality of the deity and the humanity of the hero. And you cannot replicate anything from deities. There's nothing to replicate from deities. Deities are spirit beings. But when you see them as heroes, and they were heroes before they became deities, by the way, when you see them as heroes, then you can learn things that you can replicate, which is what we are doing with Awo now, which interestingly is what myself and my children also discuss about a man like Oduduwa. His strategy, his acumen, business acumen, his political acumen, his ability to build cities, his ability to change the status quo. Those things you can only learn when you see the hero in that person. Not in any way discounting those that see the spirit, the deity in them, But you have to do that. Now, the reason I said all of that, by the way, what I just said right now, very, very important. And I think it might be the only way. I said might, I didn't say it is the only way. Or it's going to be a very, very important way to be able to pass on the lessons from our ancestors. And by the way, I study the lessons because thankfully these days they are being written down. So we don't just have to learn it by rote. We can now write it down. The only way you can appreciate what they have done as a philosophy is if you see them as heroes. I don't know why I'm spending time on this, but it's important. When you study China, what you see is, although some people practice Confucianism as a religion, most people in China take Confucianism as philosophy. So when you see Confucius in their mindset, they're able to discuss Confucius in schools. They're able to discuss Confucius in boardrooms because they're thinking about his philosophy, not the spirituality of it. That doesn't mean there's no spirituality. It exists, but they have decided to focus on the philosophy. And that's how we can grow society. Or else we'll just be shouting, heaven, fire, God, great. And it happens in every religion. Some Christians also do this thing. All you see in Christianity is heaven, not the principles. I said all of that to say this. In Yoruba land, we also have, not only do we have heroes, we have heroines, we have women that we look up to. Our women are not just put in the back burner like, oh, they don't really matter. They've always mattered. We see women, when you get to a particular age, even sometimes, even as girls, they are looked upon as mothers. That's one interesting thing about Yoruba land. Culturally, women are looked upon as mothers in terms of respect. Okay? I said all of that again to say that for Yoruba women, you have a long history, whether it's in politics, in business, in tech, in fashion. In fashion, for instance, the main person who revolutionized fashion forever in Nigeria is Folashade Thomas. She's your mother. Okay? You have people like Ibukwan Woshika, the chairman of Chess Center, who was the former chairman of First Bank. You have Alakija. You have women. You have every sector you look around there. I mean, there are men as well, but we're talking about HID Awolowo. So there are women, and they're doing well, and many of them are keeping home. So don't get carried away with this whole thing of traditional men, traditional women. And what they're talking about is what happens in America. The one that's happening in America is their own tradition. In our own space, this is how we do our things. But can we learn from them? We can learn from them. But women are not just... Raising children is a flex. But beyond that, women also contribute to national development in Yoruba land. And it's nothing new. Having said that, let's get back to the book.